and welcome to Lawyerish, a podcast for the people. Lawyerish is a safe space to learn, grow, inspire, and be inspired. So come along and ride on this fantastic voyage. Let us go be great together. I'm Brandon J. Wallace, Esquire, and I'll be your captain. It's a whole vibe, and I sure am glad you're here. Lawyerish is brought to you by Apex, where aptitude meets excellence. And our Voyage Vibe is brought to us today by Lizzo. This is Juice from her 2019 album, Cause I Love You. It's a whole vibe. Get into it. Let's get right in to Duly Noted. Okay, friends, it's time to get into Duly Noted this week. And I gotta tell you, I'm not going to spend a whole bunch of time on this today because I find it terribly annoying. But I think it's important for me and for us to pay attention to this story. And it is your friend Kanye West. I gotta say that I've been over Kanye West for some time now. I've been over his antics and his issues and all of his stuff, right? I'm over Kanye West. And so I apologize to those of you who are stands for him and think that he's a musical genius. I do not. I think he's a maniac, and I'm really over him. But, as a person, I wish him well because I know that he is grieving, and I want the best for him and his children and his family. I feel for him because he lost his mother, and I think that really fundamentally changed him, as I imagine it might for any of us, and has for some of us. But I think that the loss of his mother really, I'm not going to try to diagnose the guy, but I think that really changed him, and it really impacted him in a way that he has not been able to recover. Again, that sort of circumstance is not beyond the pale for any of us. So my heart goes out to him in that sense. It really does. And, so here's what's going on, right? Just so you know, right? If you don't know, Kanye West is married to Kim Kardashian, and they have recently gotten a divorce, and it's a whole thing. And what we've seen is this escalating sort of back and forth between the two of them and this third party, whatever this guy's name is. I don't even know his name. Pete Davidson. This sort of escalation between, tabloid and social media posts between the three of them. And then it's also sort of broadened now where D.L. Hughley and Trevor Noah, who is the host of The Daily Show, have sort of publicly made statements about what they have claimed to be harassment of Kim Kardashian by Kanye West. He's made some. It started as sort of this sort of romantic thing where Kanye was sending roses and doing things like that, and then trying to get his girl back, and then I think it has escalated to text messages and other things that are more closely aligned to harassment. And I only bring this up today because I don't do tabloid drama. But I bring this up today because I want us to be aware and cognizant of domestic disputes and the danger of domestic disputes. I'm not sure it's quite there yet, but given Kanye's track record of being a Trump supporter, a MAGA Trump supporter, all of a sudden, and running for president as a third party candidate. These are things I just have not ever. I can't forgive him for because I don't get it. But anyway, given his track record and his mental health issues that we've seen on display over the years, it concerns me that we're not paying enough attention to it. And I am sort of in line with D.L. Hughley and Trevor Noah here, where it just seems that this is spiraling, and if we don't get a handle on it, then this could end in tragedy. And we've heard some of that, some of those stories here on this show. My good friend William Kilbrew talked about his mother being uh, shot and killed right in front of him as a result of a domestic dispute. And so my guard is up here, and I'm hoping that things calm down and that the parties will go about their business and seek help, particularly Kanye. But if it doesn't, then we need to be calling on some district attorneys and some others to step in. We need the authorities to step in and keep everyone safe. My biggest fear is that this spirals out of control. I think that's the same thing that Trevor Noah was saying. His mother was killed in a domestic. I'm sorry, was injured in a domestic dispute. If I'm not mistaken, I believe she was shot in a domestic dispute. And I think he's pretty sensitive to that, and so am I. I worked a lot in the field. And as a person who has seen personally and professionally domestic disputes get out of control and go violent and end tragically, I just don't want to see that happen here. I don't want to see that on public display, and I want to make sure that those children, beautiful children of theirs, grow up and be well with both of their parents. So that's just my 2 cents. I hope we're keeping an eye on that. And like I said, I'm not going to spend too much time on it. I just want to raise the red flag or add my voice to a rising chorus of people that are saying we need to pay attention to this and we need to be safe about this and we need to prevent any violence before anything happens. So that's just my 2 cents. What do you think? Let us know at lawyerish@apexgroupdc.com. That's been duly noted. Let's get right in to Lawyerish. And I'm here with my good friend, my colleague, and law school classmate, Miss Ashley Jones. Ashley, thank you so much for doing the show and for being here today.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Friends, if you don't know, Ashley Jones is a native Washingtonian. She takes pride in giving back to her community. Ashley obtained her law degree from the University of the District of Columbia David A. Clarke School of Law and her bachelor's from the Spelman College as a political science major. After graduating from Spelman, Ashley sought opportunity to pour into underserved communities by advocating for those without a voice. Her journey has led her to now be the legal associate heading the self help office at AARP's Legal Counsel for the Elderly, whose mission is to protect the rights of our elderly citizens. Again, thank you so much for being here. I'm super excited to chat with you. Thanks for making the time. Um,
Absolutely. Thank you for
let's
having
just
me.
let's jump right into it then. So,
Sure.
how did you get to be practicing elder law?
Well, when I graduated from Spelman College, I had a moment where we all have where we realize our family members are getting older. And so I returned back to the District of Columbia and I was in law school and I found myself struggling. I'll just be
Mm,
honest, where I was trying to take care of my elderly family members and then at the same time juggle law school. So in between certain sessions at law school, I would leave class, go help my grandmother either get out of bed or help her get food. And I came to a point where I realized I am not the only one going
mm.
through this struggle. I am not the only one who is having to balance work life as their professional life with their personal life. And that gave me the passion and desire to enter into the field of elder law, knowing that there are other individuals without that granddaughter like me, and they need my help too. And I need to help them in some type of way.
Wow, that's impressive. I did not know that you were, caring for your grandparents while you were in law school. I didn't know that. I mean, For those who don't know, law school is tough time. For a lot of us, it's a dark and dreary time. Um, but for you to be going through all of that and still taking care of your grandparents, I think that's huge. I had no idea you were sort of juggling both at the same time.
I appreciate that. It was a struggle, but between other family members and myself, we would take hours or take shifts in order to be able to get it done while we were waiting to try to get some type of aid or health aid to come in and help my grandparents.
Now, were you always in elder law? Like, has that sort of been your main practice area since you left law school?
Well, believe it or not, Brandon, when I first started law school, I just knew I wanted to be a criminal
Mm,
defense attorney. I knew for sure this is what it is. And as you know, UDC in other law schools as well with immigration clinics, they have a way of shaping you to realize you can still find your purpose or find your area that really drives you, and it may not be what you thought it was when you come, but then when you leave the doors, it's something else. And so, like I said, at first I wanted to do criminal law, but then when I graduated, I knew that bottom line, I just want to help people. And to be frank, I didn't have a specific field. I just knew I want to help people. I get satisfaction from helping others, whether it be children, whether it be elderly clients, homeless individuals. I knew whatever I did for a living from that point on needed to evolve around giving back in some way.
hmm And is that? I guess my next question is, what is your inspiration? Right? How do you? What inspires you to kind of continue to do what you're doing now?
Hmm. So what inspires me to continue to do what I'm doing now would honestly be my dedication to family. Um, I know that, and for, a lot of people don't know this about me, but my grandmother, Betty Jones, who passed away actually in May of 2020 due to COVID, that was my
My
best
goodness.
friend, and she was a phenomenal individual, and I deeply valued the connection that we had, and I was her best friend, she was mine, to the point where her own children would get jealous of our relationship and say, like, why do you favor Ashley? I'm your daughter or your son. But we were that close. We really were. I would spend New Year's Eve with her and everything. But again, I would realize when I was in her community, going to her senior apartment building, this person has no one coming to visit them. And that made me want to go into the field of elder law and want to be um, an attorney at Legal Counsel for the Elderly because of everything Legal Counsel for the Elderly stands for, where you can assist a client with housing, with food, with estate planning documents. All of that really shaped helping this individual who may not get a knock at the door from a family member, but maybe once in a blue moon, if that.
So yeah, I think that's great. And I think the work that you do is really incredible. Can you kind of just
Yeah.
tell us a little bit, like unpack a little bit about like what do you actually do for elderly clients at AARP?
Sure. So, legal counsel for the elderly believes of the importance in being on the ground. And I say on the ground because I am literally in the community, not in an office at headquarters at 601 East Street Northwest, but specifically on the ground
Mm,
within the community. So, through partnerships such as Bread for the City in Southeast on Good Hope Road, to the Dorothy Height Library located between Benning Road and Minnesota Avenue in Northeast DC, we want to get as close to the client as possible because we know that our vulnerable client population may not have the money to get the metro to Chinatown to meet with us for for a
yeah.
specific need. And we know that they may not have, money for metro access or a taxi, things like that. So by being on the ground, we believe that you are able to assist this person without them having to go through hoops and tangles to get to you. So, for example, on Mondays, I'm at Bread for the City. What I do is I specifically camp out, have my station there, and we have client appointments. Right now, we are operating by appointment only due to COVID. So walk-ins are not encouraged, but we do allow them. So during these client meetings, I'm assisting clients with almost every area that if you were to be at headquarters at Legal Counsel for the Elderly, you would get there. So I assist the client with maybe a denial with Social Security benefits if I have to represent them with their Social Security issues, maybe a request for a reconsideration regarding their Social Security benefits, their deeds with updating their deeds. Maybe someone lost a family member, and which has been very common,
Yeah.
unfortunately, lately. I've found myself doing a significant amount of deeds where we are removing a deceased husband or sister and adding, this person. But to know that you have that service that's right down the street, that's within your neighborhood, within your ward, many clients appreciate that because otherwise they wouldn't have this opportunity, as a lot of organizations are not providing services to homebound clients. Legal Counsel for the Elderly is, but a lot of
Yeah.
organizations are not. So we want to give them that
Yeah, that's
opportunity.
great work, and obviously, meeting the needs of some of our elderly folks as you're talking about, right? Sort of updating deeds. Do you do wills and things like that as well? I imagine that's a big part of your day to day. Is that
Mhm.
true?
Mhm. So, believe it or not, wills
Okay,
are not. And the reason why is because we want to ensure that the actions such as drafting a will are of the client's own free will and not out of pressure
sure.
from maybe a family member or anything like that. So, that takes a process with us. So, initially, let's say a client does come to one of our locations because we're in six of the 8 wards within the District of Columbia, and they come to the location seeking a will. What we then do is we have them speak to one of our intake specialists who get initial information on what the client's trying to do. For certain situations, let's say if a daughter calls and say, "Hey, my mom wants a will drafted," we will allow the daughter to provide that initial information, but we believe in speaking with the client directly as opposed to the daughter. So for the will, we make sure that we're meeting with the client face to face. We're making sure that that family member who may be named in the will is not present within that direct meeting. So that hence is the importance of doing all of those services in
Hmm.
house. And so we do have pro bono partner law firms who assist us with wills. We also do offer those services in house through our estate planning
Okay,
division.
very good. Okay, now I actually you mentioned your grandmother, and I know that you have, and we didn't talk
Mhm.
about this, so I apologize for the blind side, but uh,
It's okay.
I know that you run an organization, a nonprofit named in her honor, the Betty Jones Foundation. Can you just spend about a
Mhm.
minute or so telling us about that organization and what you do there?
Sure, great. I'd love to talk about it. So, the Betty Louise Foundation was founded last year in 2021, and it was in honor, or is in honor, of my grandmother, Betty Jones. The reason why I sought to honor her in such a way is to really empower those with not only without a voice, but for those who may feel like giving up, not to give up. When I say this woman was everything and my hero,
Yeah.
I mean it. From having 17 back surgeries after being
Wow.
hit by a car or by a truck specifically, her health declined, and one day she woke up paralyzed from the waist down, to not giving up. Every day you see her still, she still had a smile, kept it going, to being a single mom, being a victim of domestic violence as a mother. She stayed for her children and eventually got out of that situation, then she didn't receive her college degree, but she did take classes in order to be in the field of accounting and work for Sally Mae in order to be able to provide for her kids. So I wanted a foundation that represented everything she was and everything she is
Yeah.
within myself, because she is my inspiration and I wanted people to have that inspiration as they go. And so within the foundation, we provide scholarships to such children as myself who may not have had money to go to college, because we're telling them don't give up. We're helping victims of domestic violence with such things like giant gift cards, maybe to
Yeah.
feed your family. Hey, don't give up. So it's whatever we do, we're making sure we tell people someone else is fighting on your behalf, someone else does believe in you,
Yeah,
and you can
you're
do
not
it.
alone. I love that. And can you just tell the people how to, if they want to donate to the Betty Louise Foundation, how do they do that? What is your website or?
Sure. Yes, so it is the Betty Louise Foundation.org. and you will find all of our information there. And we're presently actually doing a book scholarship for Fairfax County public school students that are seniors, class of
Absolutely love that.
2022.
You are committed to service, and I think that is wonderful. Something that we share
Thank
in
you.
common, and I can always maybe I think that's probably our
Certainly.
HBCU background as well. That does that. We got to give
Exactly.
back and take care of the community. So that's certainly commendable. I love that.
Exactly.
All right. Anyway, sorry
Me
about
too.
that. Okay, so let's go.
Okay, it's all
Thanks
right.
for indulging me. Let's. I've got to wrap this up.
No
I've got two
problem.
questions. My favorite
Okay.
questions to ask. Um, uh, First is, can you tell us like maybe your either your best experience in the field, right, sort of in the practice of law, or your worst experience? It
Mhm.
doesn't necessarily have to be the practice of law, but in your professional career, either your best
Mhm.
shining moment or your worst moment that was like, okay, I gotta do something different. Or I gotta shake this up because this
Mhm.
ain't it. So
Mhm.
either one of those or both, your
Okay.
choice.
Yeah. Absolutely. So, as you know, I work for legal counsel for the elderly, and as previously mentioned, we assist with Social Security benefits. My absolute best experience was assisting a client who was subject to eviction actually a couple of months ago with securing Social Security benefits, and not only that, but back pay as well in order to be able for them to keep their housing. And this specific individual was every calling, the hotline every day saying, I really need this help. I really need this help. So I took his case, represented him within a Social Security matter. And fortunately, I was able to push his, which actually takes about 90 days, his process through and within not even
Mm.
4 weeks. And we were able to expedite his benefits, able to assist him with securing housing, and so for him not to be homeless. And that gave me all the sense of gratitude because I kept the
Yeah,
man from living on
that's
the
huge.
streets.
Right. Those moments, we were talking about those moments are like, they're so validating. All right. When we've gone through so much to go to law school, to pass the bar, all right, to do all, and to just to
Exactly.
like find a space in the legal world when you're able to do something to make a win, secure a win for your client. It's like it makes it all
Absolutely.
worth it. It's like, yes, okay, this is why I did. Yes,
This is
right.
why I'm here.
Right, right. All right, did you want to
Exactly.
share a worst moment, or are we going to stick with just best?
Well, a worst moment, not related really to legal counsel for the elderly, but my worst moment was when I was actually trying to figure out what area of law to go into when graduating from law school. And I had started out just at a small private firm, and we were assisting a client with trying to get custody of his daughter. And to go and see a client going through hell and high water to get custody of his daughter, and for you to go before a judge and for them not to weigh in your client's favor, knowing that this client does has receipts of providing for the child and for being with the child majority of the time prior to mother taking this child away from the client, and for justice not to be served and the mother to ultimately gain full custody, full physical custody of the child,
Yeah,
broke my heart. And I would say that was the worst experience because I thought to myself, if I am doing everything in my power for this person, and I firmly believed that we had it and for justice not to be served, I don't know if I can do this type of law. And I realized I can continue my humanitarianism with, like I said, giving back to the community versus doing such matters of law where I don't feel like
yeah,
justice really is
and
being
that I
served.
mean that's a part of the our legal system, as we well know. We learned so much about the fact that
Mhm.
the legal system is not always just right. Justice does not always get
Exactly.
served, and that's a
Exactly.
reality that is hard,
Yes.
right? It's a hard pill to swallow, especially when it's like,
It is hard. It
yeah,
is very
it's
hard.
like this is supposed
Very
to be
hard.
fair and just,
Very
and I'm
hard.
supposed to get justice, and then you don't. It
Hmm.
can be certainly disheartening for sure. Um,
Yeah. But I have friends that are very good advocates in the courtroom and can just take that and shrug it off and keep going. Me, on the other hand, I'm a little more sensitive and I want to help others in a
I
different way.
understand. That's why you got to walk in your truth and be show up authentic, right? If you do that, everything else will be fine.
Exactly.
All right, my
Exactly.
last question is actually my favorite question. One of my these two are my favorite, but this is my real favorite because it's the last one. But what what advice do you have for other like younger lawyers or maybe for your younger self?
Mhm.
What advice would you give?
Okay. Well, for my younger self, she struggled. She struggled a lot, and she was living on welfare and on Section 8 public housing. And I would tell her, don't give up. Don't believe that what you see as your surroundings presently are where you're going to
That's
be in the
good.
future. And so always believe in yourself and stay motivated even when you feel like everything keeps knocking you down and you'll make one stride forward, go 10 steps back. Keep going 11 steps. Do what you have to do to really make it. And for future lawyers, I would definitely say don't box yourself into one area of law. You may find that you go to school to be a criminal defense attorney, and you may leave out of school thinking you want to be a contracts attorney. For all you know, you can find your purpose and what motivates you as long as you don't box yourself in and allow yourself to have these different experiences through law clinics or internships and
Okay,
things like
very
that.
good. Good counsel. I appreciate you sharing that. And I really appreciate you taking the time to be on the show. I know how valuable your time is. I won't tell the people what your hourly rate is. She got money, y'all, but no.
Thanks so much for having me. You know what?
Thanks for doing the show. It's good to see you. I really appreciate you and
You as well.
look forward to chatting again. Maybe you'll come back on and do our roundtable. We're going to do something like that
Yes,
where we're
absolutely. I'd
going to
love
take
to.
some questions from the people. And so we'll be in touch about that in the
Okay,
future. We'd love to have you back. Thanks again for
great.
your time, and we will see you next time. All right, friends, we'll
All
be
right, sounds
right
good.
back with our next segment. Friends, we are back, and it's now time for our wellness check. Throughout this season, we've talked about what I've called my formula for success. That formula is challenge the mind, punish the body, nourish the soul. And so I've argued that this formula is the formula for success. I'd actually like to alter that just a bit. It's an ongoing theory. I think I have the right to do that, and well, it's my show, and so I will. um, it's not a formula for success, though. I think what it is, it's actually a formula for wellness. So if you'll allow, I'd like to just correct that, the record, and that's what we'll call it from now on, is a formula for success. We've talked about what it means to challenge the mind, and hopefully, we're working to learn something new every day, and we understand why that's important. We've also talked about what it means to nourish the soul, and hopefully, we are doing things on a regular basis to feed our spirit man or spirit woman, because that being needs to be nourished for us to be well. Today, we're going to talk about what it means. We're going to finally talk about what it means to punish the body. And don't be alarmed. I'm not a masochist, and I'm not referring to whips and chains. Although I certainly don't knock it. And if anybody wants to come and chat on the show about it, that might be a future episode because the people do have questions. No, today, when we're talking about punishing the body, we're really talking about discipline. And this is never a fun subject, and I doubt it'll be fun today. But discipline is required for our overall wellness. Discipline, meaning doing the things that you know need to be done, even though they hurt or even though it's a sacrifice. Doing those things because you have a bigger goal, because we have a bigger goal or objective ahead of us, right? It's the sacrifice, the temporary sacrifice, in order to gain the larger picture. I read this book by Mark Manson some time ago. I don't know if you guys can see this if you're watching, but it's called Everything is Effed. I don't want to say it on the TV, on the recording here because my mother's watching. I'm not afraid, but I want to be respectful of any young people that are watching. Although, I mean, come on, we're grown-ups here. But it's called Everything is Effed, a book about hope. It's by Mark Manson. And in this book, among other things, he argues that discipline is required because pain is a universal constant of life. I want to just read this excerpt. Human perception and expectations warp themselves to fit a predetermined amount of pain. In other words, no matter how sunny our skies get, our mind will always imagine just enough clouds to be slightly disappointed. The pain is always there. What changes is your perception of it. And as soon as your life improves, your expectations shift and you're back to being mildly dissatisfied again. Living well, this is the important part here. Living well does not mean avoiding suffering. It means suffering for the right reasons. Because if you're going to be forced to suffer by simply existing, we might as well learn how to suffer well. And I think that's such a critical point that he makes in this book, uh, challenged by it every day. And what it simply means in layman's terms is that there's nothing we can do about pain. We talked about last week that um, it's going to cost you something, that whatever we want in life, it's going to cost us something. And so the point here is that pain is constant and that life is hard. And so what we choose to be disciplined about is what's going to make us or break us. Remember that the patterns, the activities, the things that we do on a day-to-day basis establish habits, and our habits form who we are. Our day-to-day habits form who we are. So remember, to achieve wellness, we have to be disciplined. Disciplined in the gym, disciplined at work, disciplined with our children, disciplined in our homes, disciplined in our own self activities and actions. If you're married, well, it takes discipline to stay married, to stay monogamous, or to stay honest with your spouse. If you're a parent, it takes discipline to wake them up and get them to school on time and get them dressed. If you're in the gym and seeking physical wellness, it takes discipline to go to the gym when you don't want to, when you don't feel like it. It takes discipline to repair your credit and pay your bills on time. It takes discipline. And we have to be disciplined in all areas. And so discipline doesn't mean physical punishment today, or punishing the body doesn't mean physical punishment necessarily. Although when you're working out, that's going to be a part of it. It simply means for punishing the body, we're challenging ourselves to be disciplined, doing the things that hurt now in order to win later. I'm sure if you're a Christian, you've probably heard the term, you got to crucify the flesh. Well, friends, that is discipline. And we've got to figure out ways to make sure that that bleeds over in every area of our life, wherever we want wellness. I hope that helps you. It has helped me. Read this book if you're interested. It was a great book. Everything is effed. A book about hope by Mark Manson. Really great, great read, and it really helped me to get through some dark times in my own life. More to come on that, but that is our wellness check. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back, friends. It's time now for our Apex highlight segment, and I'm so very excited to have my friend and my brother, my fellow Memphian chef, D.Arthur. Welcome to the show, my friend. Thank you so much for doing the show. We're glad to have you.
Thank you so
Uh,
much for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Absolutely. Friends, if you don't know about Chef D.Arthur, first of all, you're tripping, okay? But secondly, his name is Chef D.Arthur. He's a Memphis native. who has catered events all over the country and abroad. He's been serving at the request of high profile executives, political leaders, various NBA players, and entertainers. He's always had a love for food and culinary arts, and he is primarily self-taught, which is amazing. He's got this natural ability, which was honed by his family cooks, cooks in his family, in a brief tenure at the International Culinary School at the Art Institute in Atlanta. He's from Atlanta. He went on to get his master's degree in higher education at Louisiana State University, and then he worked at the University of Memphis before honoring his true calling. And so we're really excited to have him here. He's the owner of D.Arthur's Catering. He's a recipe developer, a food blogger. Chef D.Arthur specializes in putting a unique twist on some of your favorite comfort dishes. Uh, Dishes like collard green egg rolls, smoked salmon cupcakes, oxtail empanadas, and lump crab stuffed lobster tails. I am hungry already. Again, brother, thank you so much for taking the time to do this show. I know how busy you are, so we're really glad to have you
Oh
today.
man, I had to make time. Thank you so much for having me.
I appreciate it a lot. So let's jump right into it. I think one of the most interesting things about you is that you are self-taught. Like you jumped into this field, right? Completely just out of pure passion. Can you just talk about that? I mean, you eventually went to culinary school for a little bit, but can you just tell us how you decided to become a chef?
Absolutely. So it's something that I always wanted to do, even from being like a little kid. I was the kid who never wanted to play outside. I was always in the kitchen up under my mom, seeing what she was doing in the kitchen. I was in grown folks' business, as folks like to say.
Yes.
And I was always so impressed that she had all of these seasoning racks of so many different seasonings, spices, herbs, all of that. And she would, kind of tell me, if you use a little bit of this will make the dish perfect. If you use too much of this, it'll throw it off. And so I was always so infatuated that the perfect balance and harmony of all of those things made the perfect dish. You couldn't use too much of anything. So I used to try to, taste them by myself, all that kind of stuff. And so it's just started there. And from there, Food Network slowly became a thing. And so from,
Hmm.
loving under my mom in the kitchen, and then Food Network became really popular. So I was really, really into Emeril Lagasse and how he would like have live bands and that kind of stuff going on in the kitchen. And then Rachel Ray came on the scene and she was killing it. And Chef G. Garvin, those kind of people at the beginning of their careers kind of, lit the fire for me. It took that thing that I saw in my mom's kitchen or at my on my uncle's grill or at my auntie's house, and put a profession to it, put an industry to it, made it cool. And so from a very earlier age, I wanted to do that. Um, However, that wasn't my journey initially. I went to college, University of Memphis. I had an amazing time there. After college, I got a job that I absolutely hated. I won't say what that job is, but I hated it
Okay.
so much that I was like, you know what? All right, what are we going to do with our lives now? At this point, it's 2007. The world's a different place. Technology is a different space. The Food Network is like, boom, what it is to be a chef, what it is to go to culinary school. All of those things are front and center now. So I quit this job to go to culinary school. I moved to Atlanta to go to culinary school. I was only in culinary school, however, 1 quarter. And
Hmm.
that's because it was crazy expensive to finish the program. So I quit culinary school after 1 quarter. Um, Ended up going to grad school at Louisiana State University, where I got my master's in higher education. I went back to the University of Memphis, where I worked in higher education at my alma mater, and I was there for about 2 years. But the whole idea of being a chef just would not leave me alone. It
Wouldn't
was
turn
just
you loose.
always, it wouldn't turn me loose. It was always kind of poking at me. And at this point, back in 2007, I hated my job. But now I have a job that I like. I'm in the industry that I like. I love the work I was doing with my students. However, now the chef thing is still here, even though I have a job that I like and I have a path that I like. And so I ended up talking to someone who inspired me to just start cooking everywhere I went.
Hmm.
In my mind, I was like, I don't know how I'm going to get to do this. I tried culinary school, that didn't work. I tried starting a blog, that didn't work. I couldn't figure out how to get this rhythm. And she said, just start cooking everywhere you go. And I don't know what's going to come from that, but people will eventually become to know you as the guy who can cook. And so I get off the phone with her. She was a chef out in LA. I was really inspired by that conversation. And I called a friend of mine who had an event coming up, a fashion pop up. And I was like, yo, do you have a caterer for this event? He was like, no. I was like, I'll cater it for free. I just want to do something. And he let me do it for free. I got some cheap business cards made. I went to Walmart and got some decorations, and I made chicken lasagna cupcakes.
Hmm.
And they were a hit, and people took those cheap business cards and went to that blog that I made, um, and thought I had a legitimate catering company, and it just took off from there. One call turned into two, turned into five, turned into 10. One small event here turned into a couple of small events, turned into mid-tier events, turned into can you cater my wedding? Me
Hmm.
not knowing anything about business turned, and never really setting out to be an entrepreneur, quite frankly, only really setting out to try to figure out a way to indulge myself in culinary arts without necessarily having to go to culinary school, since that route didn't work out for me. And it turned into entrepreneurship. It turned into me figuring out how to get a business license, how to get insurance, how to market, how to pay taxes correctly, how to have employees versus independent contracts. All of those things I kind of fell into, but I fell into it through my love for culinary
Yeah,
arts and just kind of
through the
trying to figure it
passion.
out.
Yeah. So
Mm-hmm.
were you cooking like all this time before? Were you? I imagine you were still like making food for yourself or for your family and friends and things like that. Was that still happening while you were sort of doing this searching?
Yeah, so I've always been cooking.
Okay.
Even back to those early days with my mom, I was a kid that was like, "Oh, I'm not using the microwave to heat anything up." If I was making ramen noodles, if I was making leftovers from last night, it was going into a pot, it was going into a pan, it was going into the skillet. I wanted to hear it sizzle and bubble and all of that kind of stuff. I wanted to smell the smells. And
Hmm.
so that love for food, even though I didn't become a chef into many years later and through several different career transitions, um, the love was always there. I was always cooking from a very early age, Now, I will say at the point that I committed to making a chef a journey, at the point that I committed to, this career, it definitely elevated several notches. I couldn't just, be a home cook anymore. I had to figure some things out.
Yeah, and so has inspired you to go the route that you've gone, right? You've got this, and I imagine my thought is it's a lot of this homegrown sort of training that you got, and you're from Memphis, right? So I know you can cook. Your people can cook. In fact, I mean, our families go back sometime. We used to go to the same church back in the
Right.
day. Like our families know each other
We
quite
go back.
well.
My aunt was in the kitchen at the church we went to. And
Yeah.
so, like I said, I was always around food.
I did not know that. That is so interesting. I was just talking to a friend of mine just a day or two ago about beef Wellington, right? The first
Mm.
time I've ever had beef Wellington was at the church, right? Part of the kitchen staff they did that. Now, and I've not had beef Wellington in years, and I really miss it. And my friend had never had it, but that's where that I didn't know your aunt was a part of that kitchen staff at the church. They used to throw down. Let me just tell you
They
that
did. They did. They did. I think I was up there cleaning chicken every now and then.
Good man. So, would you say that that's your inspiration? Though that's because you've got this. I want to talk before we go there. I want to talk a little bit about your style of cooking. Right, you deal in this the comfort foods with a twist. Can you just unpack that a little bit for us?
So, like you said, I go with comfort food. I go very southern. I go very familiar, but I elevate it. Like I like to take things that feel so ordinary and make you be like, wow, how did you make this 5 star? How did you make that pretty? How did you give
Mm,
that much color? How did you take this, which most people might see as simple and easy, and make me feel like I should have paid this much for it,
mm,
make me feel like it's so pretty that I don't want to touch it. And so I registered, early in my career. I was making similar food as a lot of people, but the my mother always kind of harped on presentation, and so I think
mm,
my desire to present it differently, and to always be, creative and always kind of stand on my toes, kind of helped me, honestly helped me in my career, kind of helped me help set me apart. You might get this same dish from three different people, but the way I present it, plate it, color it, word it is going to be my flair.
Absolutely. I mean that has reigned true every time I've had something from you that you've made, right? And I've had a couple of occasions to do that just in professional settings. I think one before I went to law school, you catered my party in Memphis that I had. I had a collective there.
I forgot
Yeah.
about that. Oh, I had just started too.
Yeah, you were fresh off the boat, like off the out in the game.
I was still catering out of my apartment at downtown Memphis.
Yeah, you were living in Memphis. That was a long time ago. That was I started law school in 2013, so I think it was the summer of 2013 that happened. And you were really gracious to me. You didn't charge me too much. I was like, please help me. And you really did a great job. Like it was, people had a wonderful time. And I don't know if you remember this, but I told you in the room, I was like, y'all watch out for this guy. He's gonna be the one of the biggest chefs. And I think I misspoke. I said he's gonna be one of the biggest chefs in DC. And they're like, no, he's in Memphis. And I was like, okay, well, I'm speaking it into existence. He's gonna be in DC and New York too.
Listen,
And
I've
you've
worked
been
in
all over the
DC.
place.
Yeah, I've worked in DC a couple of
You
times. I
have.
think
In fact, the second event that I had that you catered was with our friends at the Black Millennials for Flint.
in DC.
You did. It was in DC. I'm on the board for them, right? I think you are close with one of our. We have a mutual friend in Latricia Adams.
Hmm.
And you catered one of our sort of annual events here in DC as well, which was also awesome. So
Thank you, thank you,
yeah,
thank you,
so
thank you.
that was so I've had a couple occasions to be able to be a guest where you are catering, and it's always exactly on brand, right? It's always delicious. It looks good. There's a level of service that you really can't buy, and so I commend you for that. You're pretty consistent with that, and that's not always easy to do.
I appreciate that. I
Yeah,
really appreciate that.
absolutely. So I want to also talk about this, right? And I'm watching the clock here, so my editor doesn't beat me up. But we also got a chance to see you on international TV. Can you tell us about that experience, the show, and what that was like for you?
Oh yeah, so I was on Chopped. My episode aired maybe 2 days ago last year, so March 2nd last year.
Oh, nice. So
Um,
coming up on you just passed your anniversary, then, yeah.
yeah, Facebook and all of that reminded me. I
Okay.
forgot. But yeah, I was avoiding the show for years. I was afraid to do it, and once once people I, I don't know. Once the more I got into my celebrity game, the more you just start kind of get emails from like casting people, or anytime like anybody who knows you from Memphis hears about somebody casting, people all of a sudden tagging you, and so there's no
Mm,
shortage of opportunities to apply to be on one of these shows. But I've always kind of avoided it, and I think a lot of it was my insecurity about, I was self-taught, and I didn't want to get on a platform like that and not know what I was doing and embarrass myself. And so I had avoided it for so long. And then COVID hit, everything is slowed down. And I randomly get a DM from one of the casting directors. And I was like, all right, and they're asking me to do an interview. I was like, all right, I'm going to do this. Cause if they, I avoid applying for it, but now you're in my DMs and I would feel like, you know, a scary cat if I walked away from the opportunity. And so I was like, all right, I'll audition. Well, not audition, but do the casting interviews and all that kind of stuff. And I had done a few of these casting things before, and I always kind of make it to the final round and never quite make it. So I got used to that. But this time I was like, ah man, I'm gonna make this. I kind of didn't even try too hard. Now this time I just kind of felt. And sure enough, I made it onto the show. I had a lot of anxiety around doing it again. I didn't want to get on there and not do well. I wanted to get on there and kill it. And so I did it. It was an amazing opportunity. It was exactly like I thought it was going to be. It was, scary
yeah.
as heck. But it was a really, really good time. And it definitely, as a, to bring it back to entrepreneurship, as a creative, as a chef, but as an entrepreneur, it definitely helped me and my confidence to go to the next level. I'll
Yeah.
admit.
And
Yeah.
have you seen has that impacted being on the show? Has that impacted your business positively or negatively, or is has that had an impact on your business at all?
Definitely positively. I didn't realize it was going to be that big of a deal.
Hmm.
In my mind, as a chef who's known several chefs who've been on that show and many other TV shows, I just thought that was just kind of like a inevitable part of the career journey. Like at some point, you'll end up on one of these things. But then when where it got out that I was, oh my God, the level of support that came
Hmm.
from every direction. I meet people to this day and was like, yo, I didn't know who you were, but that day you were on Chop, you took over my entire timeline. And
Yeah.
I didn't know who you were that day, but now that I meet you in person, it was that kind of thing. And that's
Yeah.
also translated through business and clients. People, I remember before I started charging more, people was like, the price went up, the price went up. And I was like, oh, that's how y'all feel? Okay. Let's do that then.
Yeah.
And
Yesterday's price is not today's price. Right?
I saw that a couple of times in the comments and I was like, oh, is that what people think? Let me
Yeah.
but no, like there's been a lot of support. I've had a couple of projects out since then. We did the Friendsgiving tour again since then. I've put out a virtual cookbook since then. Both of those were greatly supported. I think they would have been supported prior to Chop, but I think
Sure.
after having gone on Chop, what support looks like did elevate a lot in a lot of different spaces.
Absolutely. Well, I'm certainly looking forward to the other things that you've got coming. You do so much. You like we talked about. You do the Friendsgiving tour, which is you go to Memphis and Atlanta, New York. I think you were in D.C. this last year. Was that your first time in D.C.?
That was my first time hosting an event of my own in DC. Yes.
Yeah, right. For the Friendsgiving. Yeah. So,
Mm-hmm.
I've heard great things about all of them. I'll be attending in the future, maybe even sponsoring. Right. I want to get engaged with you on the ground level. I always just enjoy, and it just seems like a great atmosphere in all of the locations too. You also got cookbooks and you got all this stuff. So how do people get? How do we get that? And how do we get to you, right? And get to your all the wonderful things that you got going. How do we get to that? How do the people get to that?
All right. So if you want to find me, you can find me a couple of different ways. If you're a social media person on Instagram, I'm really active on Instagram. So that hashtag is not hashtag, but that handle is chef underscore D.Arthur. That's chef underscore DARTHUR. That's also very similar to my website, which is chefdarthur.com. So chefdarthur.com. And that will take you to, if you have questions about my cookbooks, it'll link you there. If you have questions about the Friendsgiving tour in the upcoming years, it'll link you there. We also have some merchandise that goes hand in hand with the tour. All of that is through the website. If you want to book me for an event anywhere in the country or abroad, holla at your boy. You can get access to me there. So my website or Instagram are the top ways to get a hold of me. Also, my email address, info@chefdarthur.com, but also both my Instagram and website will take you to my email address.
And we'll have that information on our website as well. Make sure we get the so the folks know how to find you. So can you tell us? These are my last two questions. I always like to end with these. What's your best or worst experience right in this field? Something that maybe changed your trajectory, or just as you've been going along, it was either your highlight or maybe your low point that you had to pick yourself up from. What's you can pick whichever one, and but we want to hear about that.
I guess one of the challenges or low points has been, I guess, as you continue to grow as a chef or grow as an entrepreneur or grow as a creative, um, particularly as someone who is very intentional about aesthetic. The price of what it costs to accomplish what I do has gradually gone up as I've gotten better, and not just because I'm charging more, but just because the quality of what I'm trying to present is the aesthetic of what I'm trying to present is going up, the creativity is going up, the level of service is going up, the level of logistics
Mm,
are greater, and so it's been a challenge to kind of embrace where you started and the people who were kind of there from the beginning, but also under the like, I can't stay here. I have to continue to grow.
mm,
And there's been a lot of to this, people say nowadays it's kind of like, I'm not even gonna call you because I know you're gonna be, that kind of energy. And it's just kind of like, while I appreciate, you honoring that, this is a valuable service. It is a challenge because I think part of me wants to honor where I started from. Part of me wants to honor people, and I think I'm able to offset a lot of that through the tour. I try to keep the
Mm.
ticket prices for that as affordable as possible. That way, if people can't necessarily afford me for an event, they can at least afford to access my work through other spaces, through a cookbook, through a recipe, through one of my personal events. But that was a struggle for me, growing, but still trying to honor the spaces where I started.
Yeah, well, that's huge. I think that's something that doesn't go away either, right? Like, I think I shared that sort of concern, right? My whole goal in my legal practice is to like make legal services available for folks who generally think that's a luxury, right? I don't think it's a luxury; it's a necessity. But it's most people are priced out, and so it's hard to balance that mission with, okay, well, we also have expenses and bills, and like that's got to be covered too in our costs. And so I get that, and that's something as you grow, as we grow as entrepreneurs, we have to kind of honor that, right? Don't have to shy away from the fact that this stuff costs money. I
Yeah.
heard people say like just because it's black owned doesn't mean it's cheap, right? That's not, and people
Amen.
confuse that.
Amen. Amen. Yeah. So that's been a challenge. But it's been, I think a lot of people are rising to the, no, you know like I said, I saw people in the comments after Chop saying, oh no, the price went up. Other
Yeah,
people were
yeah,
saying that
for
before I
you.
said it. So I think people honor that, while yesterday's price is not today's price, yesterday's work is not also today's work.
Mm. Oh, that's good. Oh, that is so good. Okay, I'm running out of time here. I've got to get to my last question. This is actually my favorite question. What advice do you have for other entrepreneurs, other chefs, up and coming chefs, or what's your advice to your younger self that you wish you had known? Right, so you can kind of pick where you want to be in there, but we're looking for what counsel that you have for the people.
I think the same advice would apply to my former self and up and coming chefs or entrepreneurs, which is, I always tell students this when I'm talking to students, is always take advantage of the free resources. There
Mm,
are so many of them. We always kind of focus on like, oh, I can't do this because it's not in my budget, or I can't do this because this is expensive, or I can't afford this graphic designer, or I can't afford this, or and especially with the expansion of technology, there are so many free resources that you can just Google right now and have access to without having to pay extraordinary fees. Or even like a lot of me learning recipes and the stuff, in lieu of not going to culinary school, was through Googling, through YouTube,
yeah,
through, actually, when bloggers write all of that extra information that you don't really care about, actually reading that. And so there's such a free wealth of information out there. Take full advantage of all of the stuff that's free. And that's not just necessarily information, that might just be relationships. A lot of
yeah,
my growing has come through, partnering with other chefs who got the experience that I didn't have, learning from them. I'm good at creativity and business stuff. You might be good at, you know, technique that I didn't get to go to culinary school and learn. And so now we're working together and we're both learning. And so just whatever those resources are to you, whether they are information, whether they are other people, whether they are community, whether it's finances, whatever it is, take advantage of all of those resources.
yes. I think that's great counsel. Thank you so much for sharing that, and thank you so much for taking the time to be on this show. We are so glad. I mean, I'm super hyped. I'm a big fan of yours,
Thank you.
and glad to have you on the show. Thanks for taking the time, and we'll see you next time, friends. We will be right back to do our motivational moment. Then we'll wrap up the show. All right, friends, we are back, and it's now time for our motivational moment. I want to take the opportunity to remind you that your voice has value in this sad and cruel world. Your experience is uniquely valid and worthy of expression. There is space, whether yet to be discovered or currently or current, um, that is uniquely and perfectly filled by you and you alone. And so you must, I must, we must show up fully authentic in every space. Now, that doesn't mean we do away with societal norms, laws, or workplace culture. However, it does mean that within those bounds, right, within those certain rules and guidelines, so we don't go to jail or lose our jobs or lose our friends, it is important for us to show up as our authentic selves. Again, our unique experience has value. And it's actually really necessary in this world. You and I were here for a reason. There's purpose on our lives, and there is a vision and dreams. There are visions and dreams that we must accomplish. And the only way to do that is by showing up fully authentic. If we're spending time matching energy or changing ourselves to fit into spaces that we actually don't belong, well, then we rob the world of our true authentic selves, of our true gifts and callings. And well, it just ain't worth it. So show up fully authentic today and every day, and let's let that be our work. That's your motivational moment today. We'll be right back to wrap things up. Well, friends, it's a wrap, and we have done it again. That is episode 6 under our belt. Thank you so much for listening and for watching. Really appreciate the support and the love. We thank you for all the comments, emails, and text messages about the show. Keep up that same energy. We really appreciate that. Big shout out today to our guests, Ms. Ashley Jones, Esquire, and Chef D.Arthur. Thank you for being here, folks. Really appreciate your time. Join us next week where we'll talk to Mr. A.J. Amasai, Esquire, and Jeanette Forge Smith. Looking forward to hearing from them this week, or next week, I should say. Big shout out to Lizzo for our Voyage 5. This is Juice. Also want to thank our staff, intern, Marcel Simmons. Really appreciate you, sir. Also to Dash Coordinating and Marketing for your marketing efforts. Appreciate you. And of course, my main man, Keith Jackson at Mad Rabbit, who's really holding it down for us on the editing side. We really appreciate you, brother, and wishing you well. Looking forward to next week and to wrapping up. Remember, Lawyerish is brought to you by Apex, where aptitude meets excellence. Until next time, friends, I hope you're having as much fun as I am. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. Just like any voyage, it's always a little bit more fun if you can bring a friend or two along. So we look forward to hearing from you as well. You can always email us, lawyerish at apexgroupdc.com. You can find me on Instagram at bwallyesq. And we have an Apex Instagram as well, and that's at apexgroupdc. You know where to find us. We'll be right back here next week. Until next time, friends, be well.